The sun burned over Main Street as the little town drifted into afternoon quiet. But inside Jake's diner, it wasn't so quiet. Chairs scraped as four bikers in leather and denim crowded around a corner booth. Their laughter was sharp, bouncing off the chrome and faded tile. People at the counter glanced over, then looked away. No one wanted to get involved. In that booth sat a boy who didn't quite fit. One shoe scuffed and ordinary. The other leg was a prosthetic smooth, bright metal peeking from under jeans too short. His hands were tight on the tabletop. He kept his eyes down, but the laughter crawled over him. Big hand landed on the booth, making the ketchup bottles jump. "What's that on your leg, kid? Did you lose a fight with a lawnmower?" A chorus of snickers. The boy's face flushed, but he didn't answer. He just looked at his milkshake. "That's a fancy stick you got there," another biker said, leaning in close. "Bet you can't run even if you wanted to." The biggest biker beard, heavy rings, a faded skull patch, pulled out his phone and snapped a picture. "Hold still," he said, and turned to his friends. "Gonna show my nephew how tough kids look these days." The whole place felt smaller. People pretended to read menus. The waitress froze behind the counter, gripping her notepad. Someone should say something, she thought, but no one moved. The boy's name was Samuel. He'd learned a long time ago how to let words bounce off, how to stare at his hands until it stopped. But today was different. Today, the ought to stare at his memory. Laughter felt sharp enough to cut. A little girl in a pink dress looked up from her crayons. Her mom whispered, "Don't look." The bikers went on. "What's wrong? Kid, cat got your tongue, or did your robot leg take it?" A laugh too loud. A fist banged the table. Samuel's milkshake jumped, spilling a little down the side. He reached for a napkin, hands shaking. One biker leaned close enough for Samuel to smell cigarettes and old cologne. "Hey, you hear me? I asked a question." Samuel glanced up just for a second. He saw his own scared eyes reflected in mirrored sunglasses. A rush of shame made him wish he could disappear. He wished his dad was here, but his dad wasn't home. His dad was supposed to come back next week. That's what the last letter had said. Samuel counted days by letters, each one with a return address that changed like the wind. But today, Samuel was alone in a booth, surrounded by laughter that didn't feel funny. A biker reached out, tapping the metal leg. "Makes a funny sound, ding ding, like a bell." See, his friends laughed again. The little girl at the next table started to cry. The mother whispered for the check. No one stood up. No one said enough. Samuel tried to count to 10. Tried to pretend he was somewhere else. But the metal felt cold. The diner felt smaller. And he felt smaller than all of it. The bikers kept going. "Man, you know what they say about kids with parts like that? Bet his dad just couldn't handle it. Bet his dad ran off." Samuel gripped the table. He wouldn't cry. Not here, not in front of them. But his throat burned. He could smell the grease and coffee. He could hear the music on the radio, but it didn't drown out the voices. He tried to remember his dad's voice. "You're stronger than you know. Sam, nobody decides what you're worth but you." He repeated it in his mind. But the laughter grew louder. The bikers didn't notice when the bell over the door jingled. Nobody noticed the shadow that filled the entry. Not at first, but Samuel felt it. A change in the air. The bikers laughed again. Another photo. Another insult. Then one of them looked up and went quiet. The others turned. At the front of the diner stood a man in dusty boots and a green jacket. His face was hard, lined by sun and distance. His hands looked like they'd gripped things that mattered. He looked at the bikers. He looked at the boy. Samuel's heart jumped because he knew that face. He knew that stance. His dad was home, but nobody else knew what was about to happen. For a moment, the diner held its breath. The man at the door didn't move right away. He stood there, taking in the whole scene. The clatter of nervous forks, the hush behind the counter, the way every pair of eyes darted anywhere but the booth in the corner. His gaze landed on Samuel. The boy's shoulders shrank a little, unsure if it was real. The man's eyes softened for just a heartbeat, but then his jaw set hard again. He moved. Not fast, not loud, just steady. His boots made no extra noise on the old tile, but somehow everyone heard them, step by step. He crossed the floor. The bikers watched him come, some smirking, others squinting like they were measuring trouble. One with a dragon tattoo stood and blocked the aisle. "Hey buddy, private conversation here. Why don't you order some pie and mind your own?" The man stopped right in front of the booth. He didn't look at the biker. His eyes were on Samuel. "Hey, son, you okay?" Samuel blinked. He almost said yes, just to make it easier, but the truth stuck in his throat. He nodded instead. The biggest biker grinned, showing a gold tooth. "This your boy. You should teach him some manners. He's been sitting here, acting like a little robot." The man still hadn't looked at them. He set a rough hand on Samuel's shoulder. "That's enough." The words were quiet, but they cut through the air. The laughter died off. The gold-toothed biker squared his shoulders. "Hey, pal, we were just having fun. No need to get all dramatic." He leaned in, close enough to smell the road on him. The man finally looked at him. His eyes were ice. "You think it's funny, picking on a kid half your size? You want to tell me what's so funny about that?" There was a hush. The waitress set down her tray, watching. A cook peeked through the service window. Gold-tooth tried to laugh. "Look, man, we were just playing. Kids gotta toughen up sometime." "That right." The man didn't smile. His voice was even. "You want to pick on someone? Pick on me. I'm right here." He stepped aside from Samuel's booth, planting himself between the boy and the bikers. His stance said he'd done this before. Gold-tooth hesitated. The other bikers looked at each other. Nobody wanted to be the first to back down, but nobody wanted to be the first to throw a punch. Either Samuel watched from behind his father's arm. He'd seen his dad in uniform. He'd seen him lift him with one arm, carry him on his back, laugh in the rain, but he'd never seen him like this, stone still, silent, with a kind of strength that didn't need shouting. The dragon tattoo biker nudged his friend. "Let's go." "Man ain't worth it." Gold-tooth scowled. "Not until I get my apology." He pointed at Samuel. "Kid owes me an answer." The man didn't move. He just stared at Gold-tooth until the biker dropped his hand. "What are you, some kind of tough guy?" The man's voice was low. "I'm a father." That's enough. The air in the diner got heavy. The mother in the next booth grabbed her daughter's hand. The old man at the counter took out his phone, ready to call someone if this went bad. Samuel squeezed his hands in his lap. He felt the heat of his father's presence. He felt, for the first time that day, like he could breathe again. The bikers stood there, waiting for something to break. Gold-tooth puffed up, trying to look bigger, but there was no move, no shout, just a wall of calm. Finally, the man turned to Samuel. "You ready to go?" "Son." Samuel nodded. He slid out of the booth, his prosthetic leg clicking quietly. His father held out a hand, not to help, just to say, "I'm here." The boy took it together. They turned toward the door, but as they passed the bikers, Gold-tooth muttered under his breath. Coward Samuel felt his father tense. He braced for something, words, a fight, anything, but his father just looked back, steady and clear. "Takes more guts to walk away. Try it sometime with that." They stepped out into the sunlight. The bell jingled. The door closed behind them. Inside, the silence was loud outside. Samuel blinked against the brightness. His father knelt beside him, putting a hand on his shoulder. "You did nothing wrong. Son, don't let anyone tell you different." Samuel nodded. Eyes stinging, his father's words settled around him like armor. They walked toward the truck. Neither of them saw the shadow at the window. Gold-tooth, face hard, watching them go. Sometimes trouble doesn't end at the door. The parking lot behind Jake's diner was hot and empty. Samuel's father unlocked the truck. Old and battered, paint chipped from years of sun. Samuel slid into the passenger seat, quiet, still feeling the tremble in his hands. His father set their bags in the back, shut the door gently, then started the engine. For a minute neither spoke. The radio played softly country songs and static. Samuel stared at his knee. His dad glanced over. "You want to talk about it?" Samuel shook his head. He didn't know how to explain what it felt like. Not just the laughter, not just the words, but the way the whole room felt against him. His father waited, not pushing, just drove out of the town, past rows of corn and faded barns. After a mile, Samuel spoke. Why do people do that? Pick on someone different? His father didn't answer right away. He kept his eyes on the road. Hands easy on the wheel. Some folks see difference as weakness. Makes them feel stronger to tear someone down. But that's on them. Not on you, Samuel. Let that settle. He reached down, touched the smooth curve of his prosthetic. Sometimes I wish I was normal. His dad didn't flinch. He didn't say you are normal or it doesn't matter. He just nodded. Sometimes I wish you didn't have to be so tough, but you are. You're the strongest kid I know. Samuel looked out the window. He remembered being small. Before the accident, running, jumping, never thinking about legs or limits. Sometimes memories stung worse than words. Truck rolled on. They passed a church, a field of wildflowers, a little league game in progress. Samuel's father pulled over by the park. Want to walk a bit? Samuel nodded. They got out. The grass crisp underfoot. Families picnicked under old trees. A group of boys played tag. Samuel watched them, feeling the familiar ache of wanting to blend in. His father sat beside him on a bench. You know, I missed a lot of moments being away, but not a day goes by that I'm not proud of you. Samuel glanced at him. You ever get scared? His father smiled. Small and true, all the time. But being brave isn't about not feeling scared. It's about doing the right thing anyway. Samuel nodded. He felt a bit lighter. They sat there, letting the world move around them. But back at the diner, the bikers hadn't left gold toothpaste by the window. Watching his fists curled, he didn't like how he felt, how a man in a worn jacket had shut him down without a fight. The others muttered, uneasy. We should go. Man, let it go. But Gold Tooth shook his head. No kid or old vet tells me what to do. He tossed his coffee in the trash. Get the bikes. Let's see where they go. Back in the park. Samuel stood. You ready? His dad nodded. They walked to the truck, not knowing that eyes watched from down the road. Samuel felt his father's hand steady on his shoulder. The world felt a little safer, but in the distance, engines rumbled. Not everyone was finished with the day. Some storms don't pass until you stand in them. Drive home was quiet, except for the hum of old tires and the echo of words Samuel couldn't shake. He kept glancing in the side mirror, watching the road behind them stretch empty and bright. But not empty for long. A faint vibration. A low growl. Soon, a pair of motorcycles shimmered into view on the horizon, drawing closer with every turn. Samuel tensed. His father noticed, checking the mirror, eyes narrowing for a split second before his face calmed again. Nothing to worry about, he said quietly. But Samuel could hear the caution tucked behind the words. He looked down at his leg, tapping his metal shin against the floor. He wondered if it would ever just feel like a leg. The road curved through wheat fields and silent farmhouses. The bikes kept their distance at first, just far enough to not be obvious, just close enough to cast a shadow at the crossroads. Samuel's father slowed. The bikes idled 100 yards back. Pretending not to watch, Samuel tried to focus on anything else. Dad, can we get ice cream? His father smiled, the lines at his eyes deepening. Sure. He turned left, toward the old dairy stand by the edge of town. The bikers followed. Samuel's stomach twisted, but he stayed quiet. They pulled up to the painted shack, blue and white. Little bell above the window. A teenage girl handed cones to a couple of kids. Samuel's father parked. He reached for his wallet. What flavor? But Samuel tried to sound normal. Chocolate. They walked to the window, ordered cones, sat on the picnic bench. The sun was warm, the ice cream sweet and cold. Samuel let it melt slow. Watching the bikers idle by the curb, Gold Tooth took off his helmet. He stared at Samuel's father, chewing on something invisible. His eyes were small and mean. Samuel felt every lick of ice cream grow heavy. His dad leaned close, speaking low. People like that are looking for a reaction. We don't give it to them. We live our lives. We eat our ice cream. Samuel tried. He took another bite. Let the chocolate chill his tongue. Gold Tooth revved his engine once, twice, then, without a word, the bikers roared off. The world grew still again. Samuel's dad exhaled. Slow. See, sometimes the best way to win is not to play their game. Samuel smiled. Relief rushing in. He finished his cone, wiped his hands for a moment. He felt almost normal. Almost they got back in the truck. Heading home, their house sat at the edge of a field, white paint peeling, the porch swing creaking in the breeze. Samuel ran up the steps, his prosthetic clicking. He opened the screen door and let it slam, breathing in the safe smell of home-old wood, coffee, the trace of cologne that meant his dad was back. Inside, Samuel's father set down his bag. Turned on the radio. Soft country filled the kitchen. Samuel sat at the table, drawing in his notebook for a little while. The world was simple again, but as the sky turned orange and the fields grew shadowy, headlights flashed at the end of their gravel drive. Samuel's father stood at the window, the same bikes, now parked by the mailbox. Gold Tooth and his crew leaned on the fence, not crossing the property line, just waiting, just watching. Samuel watched his dad. Are they going to leave? His father didn't answer right away. He set his jaw, shoulders broad. He flicked off the light. We'll handle it, he said, and Samuel believed him. He wanted to asterisk. Evening settled across the fields, gold fading to blue. The house felt smaller with every rumble of engines outside. Samuel watched from his bedroom window, pressing his face against the glass. The bikers stood in the deepening shadows, their leather jackets shining where the headlights hit. They weren't laughing now. They were waiting. His father moved quietly around the house, checking windows, making sure doors were locked. He didn't draw the curtains all the way he wanted to see, not just hide. Samuel listened to the heavy steps, felt the safe rhythm of his father's movements. He tried to draw, but his hand shook. The lines in his sketchbook jagged and wild outside. The bikers smoked and spit and argued in low voices. Gold Tooth tossed a bottle into the ditch, the glass bursting sharp in the night. Samuel's heart pounded. What do they want? Why are they still here? He wanted to ask, but the words wouldn't come. He heard the screen door creak. His father stepped out onto the porch, boots ringing hollow on the boards. He didn't carry a weapon. He carried himself. Tall and certain, he leaned against the porch post and looked out over the yard. You boys lost. His voice was calm, almost friendly. Gold Tooth stepped forward, his friends fanning out behind. Didn't like how things ended at the diner. Figured you might want to finish the conversation. Samuel's father didn't flinch. He didn't rise to the bait. He just crossed his arms. Easy conversations over. Why don't you move along? Gold Tooth's jaw twitched. You teaching your boy to run from trouble? Samuel heard it, the sneer. He held his breath. His father shook his head. Slow. I teach my boy to pick his battles and to stand up for himself. You looking for a fight? You won't get it here. Gold Tooth took another step, crossing the fence line. His boots crushed wildflowers. Samuel's father didn't move. He just watched, eyes sharp. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away? Samuel's father held Gold Tooth's gaze. Not better, just done. Go home for a moment. Nobody moved. The bikers looked at each other, uncertain. Gold Tooth balled his fists, but something in the quiet, the steady way Samuel's father stood, the utter lack of fear made even the tough ones hesitate. The porch light flickered, moths spinning in the beam. Gold Tooth spat into the dirt. We'll be back. His voice was ugly and thin. We'll see how tough you are when it counts. He turned, waved to his crew. The engines roared. Headlights swept across the field. They spun gravel and disappeared into the dark. Samuel let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. His father came inside, his shoulders loose but his eyes tired. He knelt beside Samuel's chair. You all right? Samuel nodded, a little braver now. His dad ruffled his hair. Don't let people like that decide who you are. You hear me? Samuel nodded again. He did hear. He would remember that night. The house was quiet, but Samuel felt safer than he had all day. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand still and not let the world change you. Asterisk. The night was long and full of small sounds. Samuel lay in bed, the moon casting silver patterns on his wall. He heard the old house creak, the wind rustle through the grass, his father's boots pacing softly in the hallway. Sleep came slow, broken by dreams of engines and laughter and the sharp sound of glass. He woke before dawn. pale light just brushing the horizon. His father was already up, coffee mug in hand, staring out the kitchen window. Samuel shuffled in, rubbing his eyes. His dad smiled, tired but real. Morning, kid. Samuel nodded. Sat across from him. They ate cereal in silence. The memory of the bikers hovered like a storm cloud. Samuel traced his spoon through the milk, thinking, Dad, are they really going to come back? His father sipped his coffee, watching the world wake up. Maybe, but if they do, we'll be ready. Samuel tried to believe it. He looked at his metal leg, shining in the early sun. He tried to imagine it as armor, not just a difference. You ever get tired of standing up to people? His father shook his head. Sometimes. But then I remember, if I don't, who will you stand up once someone else learns they can stand too? Samuel nodded, feeling the seed of courage. They spent the morning working around the house, fixing a loose shutter, pulling weeds, oil for the truck. Samuel liked being useful, the rhythm of tools and quiet words. The sun climbed higher, the memory of the diner fading with each chore. But by noon, dust rose on the road. Samuel saw them, first shapes on the horizon, black and shining, moving slow. Dad, they're back. His father wiped his hands, set his jaw. All right, let's see what they want. He didn't hurry, he didn't hide. They stood on the porch together as the bikes rolled up, engines growling. Gold Tooth led, swaggering. He smiled, all teeth and challenge. Told you we'd be back. Samuel's father met him at the edge of the yard. You made your point, now you can leave. Gold Tooth looked past him at Samuel. You teaching your boy to hide behind you, or is he going to speak for himself? Samuel felt the weight of all their eyes. He remembered the laughter, the words, the way he'd wanted to disappear. But now his father's hand rested on his shoulder. He felt the warmth. He felt the strength. Samuel took a breath. He looked Gold Tooth in the eye. I'm not hiding. You're the one who needs a crowd. Gold Tooth's grin faltered. A ripple moved through his crew. Samuel's heart pounded, but he stood tall. His father smiled. Just a little. That's my boy. Gold Tooth spat. Let's go. He turned, cursing under his breath. The bikers revved up, tires spitting stones, but none of them looked back. The noise faded, leaving the world bright and quiet. Samuel let out a shaky breath. His father knelt, eye to eye. Proud of you. Samuel smiled. He felt taller for the first time. His metal leg didn't feel heavy. It felt like a part of his story, a part of his strength inside. The house felt warmer, safe. He looked at his father. Thanks, Dad. His dad squeezed his shoulder. Anytime, son, anytime. The sun moved slow across the sky that afternoon. Samuel and his father worked in the garden, pulling weeds and planting seeds, hands deep in the good dark earth. The scent of tomatoes and basil filled the air. For a while, the world felt simple again. But every time a car passed on the road, Samuel glanced up. His heart skipped, expecting black leather, engines, that grin. But nothing came. His father watched him. Quiet. You did good this morning. Samuel shrugged. He didn't feel brave, not really. He felt shaky and small and relieved it was over. You don't have to be fearless to stand up. His dad's voice was gentle. You just have to do it anyway. Samuel nodded. He wanted to believe it later. They fixed the old fence at the edge of their yard. The rails wobbled, sun-bleached and cracked. Samuel struggled with the hammer, his grip awkward with the prosthetic leg. His father didn't step in. He waited, watched, let him try. When Samuel finally nailed the board straight, his father smiled. See, doesn't matter how you do it, just that you finish. Samuel smiled back, a little more sure of himself. They washed up, hands stained with dirt. Inside, the house was cool. His father turned on the baseball game, the announcer's voice floating through the kitchen. Samuel drew in his notebook. This time, not the bikers, not the diner, but his father standing tall. He drew himself too, smaller but sturdy. He drew his leg as steel. Shining bright. Afternoon slipped into evening. They ate dinner at the table, spaghetti and bread. Samuel's dad told stories about being a kid, about trouble and fights and the people who helped him stand up. Everyone's got scars, son. Some you Can see some you can't. Samuel listened, soaking it in. The day's fear faded with every word. After dinner, they sat on the porch. The air was soft, full of crickets. The sun melted behind the fields. Samuel swung his legs, the metal one ticking. Gently his father rocked in the old chair. Think they'll come back? Samuel asked. His father looked at the horizon. Thoughtful. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. We'll be ready. Samuel nodded. The first star blinked in the sky. He felt something new growing inside. Not just courage, something steadier. He leaned against his dad's arm. The night was quiet. No engines. No threats. Just the sound of home. Morning light crept across Samuel's floor. He woke to birdsong and the sound of his father making breakfast, eggs sizzling. Radio playing old country tunes. Samuel stretched, the old ache in his leg more familiar than painful now. He moved slow, thinking about the day ahead. Downstairs, his father poured him orange juice, ready for a new start. Samuel nodded. His father ruffled his hair. Whatever happens, we get through it together. Samuel smiled. He felt it deep in his chest. They ate in companionable silence. Then, school bag packed, Samuel waited on the porch. The school bus pulled up, brakes sighing. Kids piled out, some laughing, some half asleep. Samuel felt all their eyes. Some looked at his leg, some looked at the ground. No one said anything. He walked with the familiar click of metal on concrete. Head high, his father watched from the porch, arms crossed, sending strength across the distance. In homeroom, whispers drifted. Did you see the bikers? Heard what happened at Jake's? Samuel kept his focus on the chalkboard. He remembered his dad's voice. You're stronger than you know. At lunch, a couple of older boys stared, but didn't say a word. Samuel ate his sandwich slow. He felt the old anxiety. But something had shifted. He wasn't just waiting for the next insult. He was choosing to be there. After school, he walked home. Sun warm on his face, he turned down his street and froze. Goldtooth's motorcycle was parked under the old oak. Glinting in the sun, Samuel's heart pounded. But this time, he didn't turn back. He kept walking. Steady. Goldtooth leaned on his bike, arms crossed. He didn't smirk, didn't move. He just watched. Samuel's father stood on the porch, eyes sharp. He called out, "Everything all right?" Goldtooth straightened. "Just wanted a word with the boy." Samuel's father stepped off the porch, calm and ready. "If you've got something to say it to both of us." Goldtooth looked between them. He didn't look as big as before, didn't look as sure. He cleared his throat. "Didn't mean for things to go like they did, my nephew. He's got a brace too, didn't handle it right." Samuel blinked. Surprised, Goldtooth rubbed his hands together. "Guess I got mad at the wrong thing." He looked at Samuel. "Didn't mean to make you feel small." Samuel nodded. He wasn't sure what to say. His father put a hand on his shoulder. "Takes a real man to admit he's wrong." Goldtooth nodded. "Got places to be." He climbed on his bike, fired the engine. As he rode off, he raised 2 fingers in a quiet salute. Samuel watched until he disappeared. He looked up at his dad. "That's it." His father smiled. "That's it. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones inside us." Samuel let that truth settle. He felt taller than he ever had. He went inside, closing the door behind him for the first time. He wasn't afraid of who he was. The world looked different after that. Samuel walked lighter, shoulders back, eyes open. At school, the whispers faded. Kids still looked, but now they looked with curiosity, not cruelty. A few asked about his leg, how it worked, if it hurt. Samuel answered as best he could. Sometimes, he even let them tap the metal and hear the soft, hollow sound. He saw wonder, not judgment. His teachers noticed too. Samuel raised his hand more in class. He spoke up during group work. His drawings, once full of monsters and shadows, grew brighter. He drew the fields. His father's smile, even a motorcycle, gleaming and still at home. His father was more relaxed. They fixed up the porch swing together, painting it. New neighbors stopped by, some who had seen what happened at the diner, some who hadn't. All offered a word, a handshake, a nod. "You handled it well," they said. Samuel's father never bragged, just shrugged, just did what was right. One Saturday, Samuel and his father took a drive to the next town for groceries. They parked by the market. Samuel hopped out, his gait steady and proud. A group of bikers lounged by the curb, swapping stories. One wore a jacket with a familiar patch, a faded skull. Samuel felt a twist of nerves, but walked on. One of the bikers spotted him. He nudged his friends, but instead of jeering, he called out, "Hey, kids." Samuel paused. The biker pointed to his own leg, hiking up his jeans. A long scar ran from knee to ankle. "Looks like we both got stories." Samuel smiled. He nodded. "Yeah." The biker grinned. "You ever need tips, you let me know." He winked. Samuel laughed, a real laugh. His father clapped him on the back. "See, you never know what someone's carrying." They bought groceries, loaded the truck, and drove home with the windows down. Samuel sang along with the radio. The breeze was sweet, the sky wide. He felt stronger than ever when they pulled into their driveway. The porch swing waited. They sat together, sharing stories, letting the evening settle around them. For the first time in a long while, Samuel didn't wonder about tomorrow. He felt ready for whatever came next. Summer settled in, thick with heat and wildflowers. Samuel spent afternoons in the field behind his house, running races with the wind. The prosthetic leg thumped a steady rhythm, his own kind of music. He felt sometimes grass stains on his jeans, dust on his hands, but he always got back up. His father watched from the porch, cheering him on, letting him fall, letting him rise. Samuel felt the strength in every stumble. He felt the pride in every bruise. One evening, while the sun dipped low, a truck pulled into their driveway. It was the little girl from the diner and her mother. They got out, carrying a plate of cookies, faces shy but smiling. "We saw what happened that day." The mother's voice trembled. "Wanted to say thank you for standing up." Samuel's father shook her hand. "You never have to thank someone for doing the right thing." But the little girl tugged Samuel's sleeve. "Were you scared?" Samuel nodded. "Yeah, but my dad was there. That made it easier." The girl smiled, wide-eyed. She showed him a crayon drawing she'd made. Samuel standing tall, his metal leg shining. Samuel felt something soft settle in his chest. He hung the picture on his bedroom wall, a badge of courage. After they left, Samuel sat on the porch swing, swinging slow. His father joined him, the evening breeze brushing their faces. "You made a difference today." Samuel looked at the stars, feeling them light up inside him. He thought about fear, how it came and went, but never stayed. He thought about kindness, how it could echo, passing from one person to the next. Father put an arm around his shoulders. "Proud of you, son." Samuel smiled, leaning into the warmth and the hush of the night. He understood strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about standing up, even when you were. The porch light flickered. Fireflies danced in the dark, and for the first time, Samuel realized he wasn't just a boy with a metal leg. He was a boy with a story that mattered. The days rolled on, each one brighter than the last. Samuel found new confidence in small things, answering questions in class, joining games at recess, laughing a little louder. He noticed that when he stood tall, others seemed to follow. One afternoon, he saw a new kid at school, small, nervous, with thick glasses and a limp. The whispers had already started. Samuel remembered how it felt to be alone in a crowd. He walked up, offered a smile. "I'm Samuel. You want to sit with me at lunch?" The boy hesitated, then nodded, relief flooding his face. They ate sandwiches together, talking about comics and dreams. Some of the other kids joined in. The whispers faded. Samuel realized that courage could be shared, handed off like a torch. After school, he showed the new kid his prosthetic leg. The boy's eyes widened. "That's so cool." Samuel grinned. "Sometimes it's a pain, but it makes me run faster in the rain." They raced to the bus, laughter echoing at home. Samuel told his father about the new friend. His dad listened, pride shining in his eyes. "You did good, son. You made it easier for someone else." That's what it's all about. Samuel felt the truth in those words at dinner. They said grace, giving thanks for small victories, and second chances afterward. Samuel sat at his window, watching dusk settle over the fields. He saw his reflection, strong, steady, not just a survivor, but a guide. His father joined him. Both of them quiet in the blue evening. "Think you'll ever forget what happened?" Samuel shook his head. "No, but I don't want to. It made me who I am." His dad nodded, squeezing his shoulder. "That's the spirit." Samuel watched the first fireflies flicker. He didn't feel afraid of the dark anymore. He knew what it meant to shine. The days blended together, golden and easy. Samuel found new rhythms, helping his father around the house, reading under the big oak, drawing in his notebook. He drew heroes now, not just warriors but everyday people. His father, the new kid, even himself. He added the metal leg to every drawing. A symbol now, not a secret. One Saturday morning, Samuel's father called him out to the yard. "We've got work to do." Samuel grinned, rolling up his sleeves. They cleaned out the shed, fixed the squeaky gate, painted the porch steps. The sun climbed high, sweat beading on their foreheads at noon. His father brought out lemonade. They sat in the shade, sharing stories. "You know, you've changed a lot." Samuel looked at him, surprised how his father smiled. "You walk taller. You don't let things get to you. You help people. That's what matters." Samuel sipped his lemonade, thinking it wasn't just about the bikers anymore. It was about every day he chose to stand up for himself and for others. Later, as they finished the last coat of paint, a car pulled up. Neighbors from down the road. They brought pie, laughter, and a welcome that felt like home. "We heard what happened. Heard how you stood your ground." Neighbor clapped Samuel's father on the back. "Good job, friend." The kids played in the yard, racing across the grass. Samuel joined, his leg moving strong and sure. He didn't worry about falling, didn't worry about stairs. He ran free. As the sun set, the porch filled with friends' voices, music. Samuel sat with his father, watching the sky turn violet. "You proud of me?" His father looked at him, eyes soft always, and Samuel knew he meant it. The night was full of laughter, fireflies, the scent of fresh paint. He felt a quiet joy. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living, he was leading, he was home. Air turned cooler as the seasons shifted. Samuel went back to school in a new grade, carrying himself with a different kind of confidence. He wore shorts on the first warm day, letting the sunlight glint off his prosthetic leg. A few kids stared. One asked if it hurt. Samuel shook his head. "Not anymore. Sometimes it's a superpower." They laughed. Samuel smiled, proud. His father noticed the change too. He watched Samuel ride his bike down the street, metal leg pumping as smooth as the real one. Neighbors waved, friends called out. Samuel waved back, feeling the wide open world stretch before him. One afternoon, he stopped by the diner. Jake, the owner, waved him in. "Hey there, champ." Samuel slid into a booth. Jake brought a milkshake on the house. He leaned in, voice low. "You and your dad, you showed everyone how to do the right thing." Took guts. Samuel blushed. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt like himself. But Jake winked. Sometimes that's all it takes. Samuel looked around the diner. He noticed how everyone treated him now. Not with pity, not with distance, with respect. He realized that one hard day had changed more than just him. It had changed how people looked at each other. Samuel took a sip of his milkshake. Sweet and cold, he watched as the new kid from school came in, shy and quiet. Samuel waved him over. "Sit with me." The boy's face lit up. They talked, laughed, shared stories. Samuel's old fears felt far away when he finished. He thanked Jake, stepped outside, and felt the breeze tug at his shirt. He saw his father waiting by the truck, watching with pride. Samuel ran to him, feeling strong, feeling free. On the drive home, the fields glowed golden. Samuel knew he could face anything, not because he was different, but because he'd learned to stand tall. And that made all the difference. The days grew long and bright, the world buzzing with summer life. Samuel's leg was strong now, the rhythm of metal and muscle working as one. He spent afternoons at the creek with friends, skipping stones and racing the current. Some days he won, some days he fell, but he always got up, laughter echoing through the trees. One Saturday, the town held its annual picnic in the park. Families gathered under tents. Kids played games, and the scent of barbecue drifted on the wind. Samuel wore his favorite red shirt and shorts, his prosthetic leg gleaming in the sun. He helped set up tables, carried ice, and chased little kids through the grass. People greeted him with smiles. Claps on the back, parents nodded. Eyes bright with pride, he felt a part of the crowd, no longer the boy to be pitied or stared at, but simply Samuel. When it was time for the three-legged race, Samuel's best friend Tom grabbed his hand. "Come on, let's show him." They tied their legs together, Tom's and Samuel's prosthetic on go. They stumbled, laughed, found their balance, and ran. People cheered as they crossed the finish line. Not first but not last, Samuel grinned, breathing hard, sweat running down his face. He'd never felt so alive later. As the sun dipped low, there was a softball game. Samuel's father pitched, Samuel batted, sending the ball soaring. He ran the bases, metal leg pumping, dust flying behind him at home plate. His friends shouted his name. Even the old bikers from town, now sitting by their motorcycles, raised their drinks in salute. One approached, dragon tattoo. Quieter now, he stuck out his hand. "You're one tough kid." Samuel shook it, surprised by how good it felt. The past was there, but it didn't hurt anymore. The picnic rolled into evening. There were fireworks and sparklers, laughter and songs. Samuel sat on a blanket with his dad, watching colors bloom across the night. His father nudged him. "Proud of you." Every day Samuel leaned against his shoulder, content. He thought about fear and how it had changed him. He thought about kindness and how it had saved him. He looked around at his friends, his father, even the old bikers. He saw a town that had learned something new about standing up, about forgiveness, about the strength hidden in every heart. As the last firework faded, Samuel closed his eyes and made a wish not to be different, but to always remember this feeling. He wanted to carry it forever, the courage to stand, the grace to forgive, the joy of being exactly who he was. The next week, life moved slow and gentle. Samuel rode his bike to the store, the sun on his face, the wind tugging his hair. He bought a loaf of bread and a bottle of lemonade, smiling at Mrs. Keller behind the counter. "You've grown," she said. "Not just taller but steadier." Samuel grinned. He pedaled home, taking the long way through the neighborhood. Kids waved as he passed, their voices easy and light. He felt the shift, how the old glances of pity had turned to respect. He stopped by the park, watched a group of younger boys struggling to fix a broken swing. Samuel hopped off his bike, set the kickstand, and walked over. "Let me help." He showed them how to tighten the bolts, steady the chains. His hands were sure, his words kind. One little boy looked at Samuel's leg, wide-eyed. "Does it hurt?" Samuel smiled. "Not anymore. Sometimes it feels like flying." The boys laughed, pushing each other on the swing. Samuel felt the world open around him, full of possibility. When he got home, his father was in the garden, kneeling in the dirt. Samuel knelt beside him, hands deep in the earth. They planted rows of beans, side by side. His father told stories about his own father, about growing up, about the mistakes and lessons that shaped him. Samuel listened, soaking up every word. "You know," his father said, "everyone's got something they carry, something that hurts, something that makes them different. What matters is how you carry it." Samuel nodded. He thought of the bikers, of Gold Tooth and Dragon Tattoo. He wondered what they carried, what they hid behind the noise and the bravado. Later, as the sun slipped behind the trees, Samuel sat on the porch with his father. They watched the sky bleed orange and purple. A car drove by. The window rolled down. Someone called out, "Hey Samuel, you're the bravest kid in town." Samuel laughed, a sound bright and free. He looked at his father, felt the warmth of the moment. For the first time, he realized he wasn't just surviving, he was leading. He was giving others permission to be strong, to be kind, to be themselves. As dusk settled, fireflies blinked in the yard. Samuel chased them, barefoot in the cool grass, metal legs shining in the dark. He caught one, held it gently in his palm. Its light flickered, tiny and fierce. Samuel smiled. Knowing he carried that same light inside him, he let the firefly go. Watched it rise into the night. He whispered a thank you to the world, to his father, to the boy he used to be, and in that moment, Samuel knew he was exactly where he belonged. School started again, with the air crisp and bright. Samuel woke before dawn, packed his backpack, tied his shoes. His father made pancakes, humming under his breath. "You ready?" Samuel nodded. He felt ready for anything on the bus. The seats were full of voices and laughter. Some kids waved him over. He slid in, feeling welcome at school. The halls buzzed with new energy. Samuel saw the new kid, his friend from last spring. Looking lost by the lockers, Samuel called him over. Shared his schedule, walked with him to class. They sat together. The start of something steady. In gym class, the teacher announced a relay race. Samuel lined up. Heart thumping, he ran hard, his metal leg pounding the track. He stumbled once, but caught himself, finished strong. His teammates cheered, high-fived him. No one saw his leg as a weakness anymore. They saw effort, they saw grit, they saw Samuel. After school, Samuel's father picked him up. They stopped by Jake's diner for pie. Jake grinned, slid an extra slice across the counter. Heroes discount. Samuel laughed. Sharing the pie with his dad. Goldtooth was there, sitting alone at the back table. He caught Samuel's eye and nodded. Respectful. Samuel nodded back, no fear in his chest. After dinner, they walked home under a sky scattered with stars. His father put an arm around his shoulders. "Proud of you." Every day Samuel leaned close. He wanted to say something, but the words caught in his throat, so he just smiled, letting the feeling fill him at home. Samuel finished his homework at the kitchen table. He drew in his notebook, sketching himself and his friends smiling, arms linked. "Strong," he wrote at the bottom. "Bravery is being yourself." Later, he lay in bed, listening to the gentle sounds of the house. He thought about the journey. He thought about fear and how it had changed. He thought about kindness and how it echoed. He knew there would be hard days still, but he felt ready because now he knew he could face anything. The world outside was wide and bright. Samuel closed his eyes, letting hope carry him into sleep. The weekend brought a different kind of challenge. Samuel's father signed them up for a local charity walk, a 3-mile route winding through the town's hills and parks. All proceeds went to help veterans and kids with disabilities. Samuel hesitated at first. He'd never walked that far on his prosthetic leg. What if he couldn't finish? What if people stared? His father saw the doubt. He knelt beside Samuel, voice gentle. "We just do our best. That's all anyone can ask." Samuel nodded, heart pounding. The morning of the walk, the park was full. Families, kids, old men in uniforms, women with strollers, dogs on leashes. Samuel pinned his number to his shirt, his father's strong hand on his shoulder. They lined up at the starting line, sun rising over the trees when the whistle blew. Samuel started slow. He found his pace, step after step, his father beside him. Some people passed them, some slowed to walk with them. A woman in a wheelchair smiled at Samuel. "You're doing great." He smiled back, surprised by her kindness. At the first mile, his leg ached. His father offered a break, but Samuel shook his head. "I want to finish." He remembered every hard day, every stare, every cruel word. Every time he got up, he pressed on, sweat on his brow. By the second mile, the crowd thinned out. The path curved by the river, sunlight shimmering on the water. Samuel felt tired, but strong. He looked at his father, steady, proud, always there. They walked the last mile together, side by side. When they crossed the finish line, a cheer rose. Samuel's friends were there, his teachers, the diner staff, even Dragon Tattoo, clapping from his bike. Samuel's legs wobbled, but he stood tall. A medal slipped over his head. The announcer called his name, told the crowd his story. He didn't feel embarrassed. He felt seen. He felt celebrated. He hugged his father, tears stinging his eyes. "You did it, son." Samuel grinned, breathless and proud. "Yeah, I did." That night at home, Samuel hung his medal by the window. It glinted in the lamplight, a reminder of how far he'd Come, he realized he could do anything so long as he kept going. Step by step, he wasn't just a boy with a metal leg, he was a finisher, a leader, a survivor. Sunday mornings were slow and peaceful. Samuel and his father went to church. Slipping into the old wooden pews, the congregation had heard Samuel's story, and many greeted him by name. The pastor smiled, shared a sermon about hope and endurance. Samuel listened, feeling each word settle deep inside. Afterward, as people gathered for coffee and cake, an older man with a cane approached. He looked Samuel in the eye, his own lined with years of storms. Lost my leg in the war, he said quietly. You're braver than you know. Samuel shook his hand, feeling the strength in that grip. They sat together, trading stories of childhood, of pain, of rising up after a fall. The old man leaned close. It's not the leg that makes you stand tall, son. It's your heart. Samuel felt that truth, bright as the morning sun. Later, Samuel and his father walked home, shoes crunching over leaves. They stopped at the playground. Samuel swung high, legs pumping, metal and muscle flying in the air. His father pushed him, laughing. A group of younger kids gathered around. Show us how you climb. Samuel didn't hesitate. He scrambled up the jungle gym, reaching the top, looking down at the world. His friends cheered. One little boy pointed. If he can do it, so can I. Samuel grinned, feeling courage ripple out like sunlight. When they headed home, Samuel saw the town differently. He noticed how people smiled, how they helped each other. He saw kindness in small gestures. A door held open, a steady hand on a shoulder, a word of encouragement. At dinner, Samuel's father made his favorite chicken and rice. They sat together at the table, sharing stories from the day. Samuel talked about the old man at church, about the new friends on the playground. His father listened, eyes shining with pride. You make me better, you know. Samuel blinked, surprised. You make me want to stand taller, too. Samuel smiled, heartful. After dinner, they walked outside. The sky was wide, stars bright. Samuel sat on the porch, drawing the day's memories. His metal leg glinted in the moonlight, no longer a shadow but a badge. He knew the journey wasn't over, but he also knew he'd never walk it alone. Time moved forward, each day a little easier than the last. Samuel found his rhythm in school and life. He took on new challenges, joined the art club, and started teaching his younger neighbor how to ride a bike. The boy was scared, worried about falling, worried about what others would say. Samuel knelt beside him. Patient falling's part of learning. Don't worry about what they think. Just get back up. He steadied the bike, walked beside his friend as he wobbled and swerved. After a few tries, the boy found his balance. His laughter echoed down the block. Wild and free, Samuel's chest filled with pride. He knew he was making a difference, one small moment at a time. That weekend, Samuel's father suggested they visit the lake. They packed a picnic, loaded the truck, and drove out past the fields. The lake sparkled under the afternoon sun, waves lapping at the shore. Samuel took off his shoes, waded into the cool water. He didn't care about the looks he got from strangers. He splashed, dove, and floated, his metal leg gleaming. A family nearby watched him play. A little girl asked her mom why his leg was different. Her mother smiled, because everyone's different in their own way. Sweetheart. Samuel smiled at the girl, waved, then turned back to his dad. They skipped stones, counted ripples. Samuel threw farther each time, his father cheering him on. Later, they sat on a blanket, eating sandwiches. Samuel's father talked about his own childhood, his mistakes, his victories. Samuel listened, soaking it all in. You know, son, being strong isn't about never needing help. It's about knowing when to ask for it, and when to give it. Samuel thought about all the people who had helped him, his father, his friends, even those who once hurt him. He realized he was grateful for all of it. The sun set in a blaze of color, and they drove home with windows down, singing to the radio. Samuel felt ready for anything. When Monday came, Samuel returned to school with new energy. He volunteered to help in the library, picked up trash on the playground, Offered to walk with the new kid to class. He didn't do these things for praise. He did them because it felt right, because he knew what it meant to stand alone, and how much it mattered when someone chose to stand beside you at home that night. Samuel lay in bed, tired and content. He listened to the quiet house, his father humming in the next room. He smiled in the darkness, knowing he was exactly where he was meant to be. The leaves began to turn, painting the world in golden fire. Samuel rode his bike through the swirling colors. Feeling fast and fearless, his father watched from the porch, waving as Samuel disappeared down the lane. At school, Samuel was chosen to lead a project for the first time. His teacher asked him to organize a food drive for families in need. Samuel hesitated. He'd never been in charge before, but he remembered all the times his father had said, "Just try," so he stood in front of his class. Voice a little shaky at first, he explained the plan, assigned tasks, and encouraged everyone to bring what they could. To his surprise, his classmates listened. They respected him now, not for what he had lost, but for what he had learned. The food drive took off. Kids brought cans and boxes. Parents dropped off groceries. Samuel kept track of it all, his notebook filling with numbers and names. The principal stopped him in the hallway. "You're making a real difference." Samuel, he felt pride swell in his chest, humble but bright. The day they delivered the boxes to the local shelter, Samuel's friends helped carry the load. The families there greeted them with smiles and hugs. Samuel saw the gratitude in their eyes, felt the ripple of kindness spreading out. One little boy at the shelter stared at Samuel's leg. "Does it hurt?" Samuel shook his head, kneeling down. "Not anymore. It just reminds me I can get through anything." The boy smiled, hope flickering in his eyes. That night, Samuel told his father about the food drive. His dad listened, smiling with pride. "See what happens when you stand up and lead." Samuel nodded. He knew it now. Courage was contagious. Every act of kindness, every step forward, helped someone else find their strength. The next morning, Samuel woke to frost on the windows. He pulled on his warmest socks and headed out for chores. He raked leaves, fed the neighbor's dog, and shoveled the walk for Mrs. Keller. She pressed a hot cocoa into his hands. "You're a good soul." Samuel grinned, warmed from the inside. At dinner, he sat with his father, talking about dreams and what came next. His father listened, asking questions, giving advice, but never pushing. Samuel realized his father had been his anchor all along. Steady and true, he promised himself to be that for others, to be the friend who showed up, to be the hand that reached out. As the night settled in, Samuel watched the stars from his window. He felt a quiet certainty. No matter what tomorrow brought, he was ready to face it. Not alone, but together with his father, his friends, his whole town. Samuel smiled, heart steady. He knew his journey was just beginning. Winter came softly, wrapping the town in white. Samuel woke to snow blanketing the yard, the air clean and sharp. He hurried to pull on boots and his heavy coat, eager to feel the crunch underfoot. His prosthetic leg left a smooth track alongside his real one. He helped his father shovel the walk, tossing snow high, laughing as flakes clung to their hair. Later, Samuel joined his friends at the hill behind the school. They dragged sleds to the top, racing down again and again. Samuel's metal leg thumped against the plastic sled, but he didn't care. He was just another kid in the blur of speed and shouts. When someone wiped out, Samuel was the first to help them up, offering a mittened hand. Even the older kids, ones who used to look right past him, called his name. "You're flying, Sam." He grinned, cheeks pink from cold and happiness. That evening, as the sun set behind frosted trees, Samuel's father started a fire in the old stone hearth. They sat together, sipping cocoa, the warmth soaking deep. Samuel drew pictures by firelight, his friends in the snow, the hill, his father's broad smile outside. The world was quiet, just the crackle of ice on branches. The next day, school was closed for a snowstorm. Samuel and his father built a snow fort in the yard, packing the walls tight. When a group of neighbors walked by, Samuel invited them in for a snowball fight. Laughter rang out across the yard. Samuel led the charge, darting and dodging, never worrying about his leg. He felt light, powerful, unstoppable. Afterward, they all crowded into the kitchen. Boots piled at the door. Samuel's father served them soup and sandwiches. The warmth in the house matched the warmth in Samuel's chest. That night, as snow fell soft and steady, Samuel lay in bed thinking about all he'd gained. He realized that every struggle, every bruise, every hard day had given him something: strength, compassion, friendship. He closed his eyes, listening to the wind. He dreamed not of running from trouble, but running toward whatever came next, ready, unafraid, surrounded by people who believed in him. And somewhere in the night, Samuel knew he had become the kind of person he'd always needed when things were hard. He had become a light in the winter dark. As the days grew longer, hints of spring crept into the cold. Icicles dripped from the eaves, and Samuel could smell the earth waking under the melting snow. He helped his father clean up the yard, clearing away branches and setting new seeds in the garden. Each morning, Samuel felt the excitement of change, of things growing, of himself growing too. At school, the principal announced the annual talent show. Samuel had never joined before, but this year, his friends urged him on. "Come on, Sam, you can do something awesome." Samuel hesitated, but his art teacher encouraged him. "Why not show your drawings?" Samuel nodded, heart pounding. He picked his favorite pieces: sketches of his father, his friends, the playground, his own journey. He included a drawing of himself running, metal legs shining, joy in every line. The night of the show, Samuel stood backstage, hands shaking. He watched singers, magicians, even the new kid recite a poem. Then it was his turn. Samuel wheeled out the display board, feeling every eye in the room. He cleared his throat, voice quiet at first. "I draw because it helps me tell my story." He pointed to the picture of himself on the hill. "I used to be scared of what made me different. Now I see it as part of who I am." He talked about his father, his friends, the town. He talked about learning to stand up, about kindness, about the strength that comes from struggle. When he finished, there was silence, then applause, rising, filling the room. His father was in the front row, eyes shining with pride. Afterward, people crowded around, asking about his drawings, telling him how brave he was. Samuel smiled, grateful and proud. That night, as they walked home under a sky lit with stars, his father put an arm around his shoulders. "You moved people, son. You showed them what's possible." Samuel nodded, warmth blooming inside. He realized that every time he told his story, it made someone else feel less alone. He was giving back the light that had been given to him. As spring opened up, Samuel felt ready for anything. He joined the track team, ran with all his heart. He taught the new kids how to climb trees and build forts. He showed everyone that being different was just another way of being strong. And through it all, his father cheered the loudest. Samuel knew he wasn't just growing up, he was growing into himself. Spring exploded into color. Wildflowers painted the fields, and Samuel spent every spare minute outdoors. He joined pickup soccer games at the park, running harder than anyone, laughing when he tumbled. Kids called his name Sam. "You're on our team." No one asked about his leg anymore. It was just part of him, like freckles or brown hair. One afternoon, as rain clouds gathered, Samuel sat on the porch with his father. They watched the storm roll in, thunder echoing over the hills. His father sipped coffee, eyes far away. "You know, you remind me of your mother sometimes." Samuel looked up, surprised. His father rarely spoke of her. She was stubborn, strong, never gave up. "She'd be proud of you." Samuel felt a lump in his throat. He missed the mother he barely remembered, missed her voice, her smile in the old photographs. His father rested a hand on his shoulder. "We make each other better, you and me." Samuel nodded. The rain came, soft and steady, washing the world clean. Afterward, Samuel walked down to the creek, feeling the cool mud between his toes. He watched water rush over stones, powerful and patient. He realized that's what he'd become: a steady current, strong enough to move around any obstacle. Back at the house, Samuel found his old sketchbook. He turned the pages, seeing how his art had changed. The first drawings were dark, full of fear and shadows now. The lines danced. They told stories of friendship, courage, laughter. Samuel felt pride in every page at school. The art teacher hung Samuel's drawings in the hallway. Other students stopped to look. Some left notes. "You're amazing. Your story helps me." Samuel tucked those notes into his backpack, a secret armor for tough days. As the school year ended, Samuel was chosen to speak at the assembly. He stood in front of his classmates, the teachers, the parents. He shared what he'd learned, not just about prosthetics or bullies, but about kindness, forgiveness, and believing in yourself. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. Samuel saw his father in the back, tears shining. The world felt wide open, full of possibility. That night, Samuel lay in bed, window open. To the warm night, he listened to the crickets, the quiet strength of his own heartbeat. He knew he'd never forget these days. They were the foundation of the man he was becoming. Someone who stood up, someone who helped others stand. The final days of school were filled with sunlight and excitement. Samuel signed yearbooks, laughed with friends, and helped pack up the classroom on the last day. His teacher handed him a letter for you. Samuel opened it. At home, he slipped it into his backpack. Curious, that afternoon, Samuel and his father celebrated with ice cream at Jake's diner. Jake himself came out from the kitchen, clapping Samuel on the shoulder. "Heard you're the bravest kid in town." Samuel grinned, cheeks warm with pride. On the walk home, he felt the energy of summer buzzing around him. Endless days, big dreams, new adventures. At home, he remembered the letter. He opened it on the porch as the sun dipped low. Inside, he found a simple message from his teacher. "You've inspired more people than you'll ever know. Thank you for teaching us what real strength looks like." Samuel's heart squeezed. He thought back on the year, the bullies, the fear, the anger. How he'd stood up again and again. How he'd forgiven. How he'd helped others. That night, Samuel and his father built a fire in the backyard. They roasted marshmallows, watched the sparks rise. His father handed him a small box. Inside was a medal, engraved with words that made Samuel's throat tighten. "For courage in big things and small." Samuel looked up at his father, eyes shining. "You earned it." Samuel held the medal, felt its weight. He understood it wasn't just about what he'd faced. It was about what he'd given back to the world, a lesson in kindness, a legacy of hope. They sat together by the fire, talking about the future, about dreams, about what mattered most. Samuel promised himself he would always remember these lessons. He would carry them forward, wherever life led. The fire crackled. The night deepened. Samuel leaned against his father, feeling safe, feeling strong, ready for whatever came next. Knowing that courage was not just something you had, it was something you chose. Again and again. Summer stretched wide, full of possibility. Samuel woke every morning with the sun in his window, the sound of birds and the promise of new adventures. He rode his bike through the town, greeting neighbors, always ready to lend a hand. He spent afternoons with friends playing ball, building forts, sharing stories under the shade of old trees. His metal leg was never a barrier, never a shadow. It was a part of him, shining in the sunlight, strong and sure. One day, a group of younger kids gathered at the park. Uncertain and shy, Samuel noticed one boy sitting alone, watching the others with longing. Samuel walked over, smile easy and welcoming. "Want to join us?" The boy looked at Samuel's leg, then at his face. A hesitant smile bloomed. "Really?" Samuel nodded. "Of course, we all belong here." The boys stood, and together they ran to join the game. Laughter rang out across the field. As dusk settled, Samuel sat with his father on the porch. They watched fireflies blink in the tall grass, the world peaceful and whole. His father's voice was quiet, full of pride. "You changed this town, Sam. You showed everyone what real strength looks like." Samuel leaned against him. Content. He thought about the journey, the pain, the fear, the forgiveness, the courage. He knew there would always be challenges, But he also knew he would face them with kindness, with hope, with the knowledge that every scar was a chapter of his story. And that story was still being written as night wrapped the world. In gentle silence, Samuel whispered a promise to himself. To keep standing, to keep helping, to keep shining, no matter what. For he understood now, sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply be yourself, and in doing so, you light the way. For others, the porch light glowed. Samuel's heart was full. His journey was just beginning.